100 years. What were things like 100 years ago? How many of you remember? Mr. Brodsky would have maybe. But I need to share a few things just for historical perspective into what Sacred Heart School came into. 100 years ago, the average life expectancy for a male in the United States was 47 years. "14% of the homes had a bathtub. 8% of the homes had a telephone. There were only 8,000 cars in all of the United States, and a total of 144 paved miles. The tallest structure in the world was the Eiffel Tower. The average wage of a U.S. wage earner in 1910 was 22 cents an hour. 22 cents an hour. The average worker made $200 to $400 a year. Over 95% of all the births were in a home. Sugar cost 4 cents a pound. Eggs were 14 cents a dozen. Coffee was 15 cents a pound. And most women washed their hair once a month. And they washed their hair with either borax or egg yolks as shampoo. The 5 leading causes of death 100 years ago were pneumonia, tuberculosis, diarrhea, heart disease, and stroke. The American flag had 45 stars on it. The population of Las Vegas, Nevada was 30. Crossword puzzles, canned beer, and iced tea had not been invented. There was no Mother's Day. There was no Father's Day. 2 out of every 10 adults couldn't read or write, and only 6% of all Americans graduated from high school. Marijuana, heroin, and morphine were all available over the counter at your local drugstore. It's important. I Googled it. In 1910, there were 230 total murders in the country. Into that world came Father Green and then Monsignor Klinkhammer. And as you look at this 1912 overhang facade, you just can't imagine what the world was like. So tonight, one of the things that we're going to do is try to provide to you some sense of what it was like in different periods of time. The first period of time is 1910 to about 1960. And if you would please warmly welcome somebody who will share that with us, one of our own, Gene Dempsey, class of 57, 1910 to 1960.
Every other October, Sacred Heart School celebrates the recipients of the Lumen Christi Award. Part of the presentation includes a description of a sense of place. This sense is a characteristic that some places have and some do not. It can be described as that which fosters a feeling of authentic attachment and belonging. To have a strong sense of place is to have a powerful identity and character that is deeply felt and holds special meaning for particular people. This sense of place is felt by many people who have experienced the faith community of Sacred Heart, and in particular, the Catholic education at Sacred Heart School. Tonight, we enhance that sense as we remember the first 100 years. Carney, Crystal, Driscoll, Enright, Kelly, Ketter, Keeneman, Murphy, O'Leary, Myers, Sullivan. Just a few very familiar sounding names included in the first graduating class. The class would begin 8th grade in the fall of 1912. Having sisters as teachers was a novelty to this class. Having recess was another. Unsure of what recess involved, the students disappeared in all directions and returned when the spirit moved. Recess was promptly discontinued, and the students were instructed in the 1912 rules of etiquette. Apparently this was effective, as history states that they became among Uncle Sam's most law-abiding citizens. Thus began our first 100 years. Attempts to start a school began before 1912, but were unsuccessful until Father William Klinkhammer came here in 1911. One of his first moves was to plan a school, which was erected by the Dane Company and opened in the fall of 1912. The Benedictine sisters who came to teach were from the Duluth area until 1919, when the Crookston community was formed. A convent was built in East Grand Forks in 1919 at a cost of $26,000. The top floor was used as a dormitory for country girls. My own mother-in-law and her sister spent her high school years in the dorm, graduating in 1938. The first high school class graduated in 1923. It appears many went on to what was known as normal school to become a teacher, or commercial school to become a secretary. A few attended colleges. Others joined one of our armed forces. Some went back to the farm to work with their families. Tuberculosis and pneumonia took the lives of some of the graduates at an early age. In the early years, and well into the 1920s, East Grand Forks was known as the wrong side of the river, and its reputation was jaded. Even with national prohibition, much of the saloon trade continued illegally in East Grand Forks. Dave Andrews, in his History of Sacred Heart, tells the story of a religion class given by Father Klinkhammer in the late 1920s. Father would ask such questions as, who makes the sun rise? To the question, who makes the moon shine? An answer came from one little boy who stood up and said, R.D. Fontaine. Nobody knows what Father Klinkhammer said. In the 20s, the population now included more families than single individuals, requiring parks, clean streets, city services, and family entertainment. The State Theater in Baldwin opened in 1921, providing family entertainment, including an extensive zoo. The city built a baseball diamond to accommodate the twice weekly ball games that were popular in the mid-20s. The first annual 4th of July community picnic promised to be a great success. The community moved toward agriculture as its tax base. Sacred Heart School continued to thrive in the 30s. Girls wore sweaters and skirts to school, hats or veils to church, and at Easter purchased a special hat that played like Dottie Dutton. They could get a perm at Conley's and SHS and other local beauty salons. In the 40s, I wore dresses to school. In the winter, I added a garter belt that held up brown cotton stockings that always wrinkled at the knee. All the girls wore them. Though they were the style, they were truly ugly. The roller rink in the basement of the uptown provided entertainment, and many of our young people would dance on stage to the music provided. Hobnobs or sock hops were held at the school. Children put on neighborhood plays and invited their families and friends. They listened to big band music. They could go to the state ballroom and dance to the likes of Woody Herman, the Dorsey Brothers, Louis Armstrong, and other top bands of the day. Liquor was not served there, so a family atmosphere prevailed. A movie theater was added, and for 9 cents you could enjoy the show and stay for more than one if you wanted. After the movie, you could go to Dunham's and enjoy a cherry coke and maybe help yourself to a handful of popcorn as you went out the door, fully believing that Charlie Dunham didn't know what you were doing. Our mothers ordered groceries from Dungeons, Pete's, Arts, or Zedek and Martin's. If you lived on the point, Nellie's was their choice. The delivery truck driver would bring the order to your home, carry the groceries, and unload them. Milk was delivered to your door early in the a.m. The milk wagon was pulled by horses until in the 40s. The ice truck came too. Moms would order a huge chunk of ice for the top of the ice box or refrigerators to be in. As little kids, we would follow the truck and hopefully be offered some of the small chunks of ice for our enjoyment. Movies were often enjoyed on Sunday afternoon after we attended benediction at Sacred Heart at 2 p.m. We would walk to and from the movies, whether it was in East Grand or Bradford. Some of our favorite movie stars were Clark Gable, Alan Ladd, Gary Cooper, Judy Garland, Jane Russell. My personal favorites and my heroes were the singing cowboys, Roy Robbins and Gene Autry. They loved their horses, never kissed a girl, and only inflicted flesh wounds on their enemies, and ended every conflict with a song. Television wasn't available until the late 50s. We read for entertainment. For me, it was any type of history or dog or horse story. The swimming pool opened in 1941. The 4th of July celebrations continued and Sherlock Park would be full of people. Penny Bazaars were a school-sponsored activity organized and worked by the religious sisters and the students of Sacred Heart. It flourished throughout the 30s and 40s, providing games and bingo for the parish. The first Penny Bazaar raised $421.33 that went toward the purchase of library furniture and athletic equipment. The profit was considered remarkable for the Depression era. In the 1930s, a young men's club was formed during the encouragement of Father Klinkhammer. Its purpose was to provide financial support for athletic programs at Sacred Heart. This group is currently called the Sacred Heart Athletic Club. Those of you who remember the 1912 building will recall that the gym was in the basement level. The ceilings were rather low and posed a challenge for the basketball players. Jim Kelleher used to give a great demonstration of how he had to shoot the ball forward to get it into the basket. No wonder the basketball scores of those days were in the teens and low 20s. A Sacred Heart tradition active in the 30s to the 50s was the saving of pennies to sponsor a mission child, or as they were more popularly known, pagan babies. Competition between classes and sponsoring a pagan baby would be posted on the school hallway bulletin board. If I recall correctly, a pagan baby could be purchased and named once a donation reached $5. Some of our favorite teaching sisters were Sister Aquinas, Patricia, Cecilia, Carmela, Angela, Basil, Thomas. If we wanted to use a phone, we talked to an operator. Phone numbers went something like this: 4774. That would get your Rosa Metcalf on there. And of course, it was a party line, so 3 or 4 more other people would listen in to what you had to say. The early 40s were defined by World War II. We saw our fathers and our brothers reach for duty with one of the armed services. Rosie O'Leary tells of her older brother Jack, who was in the Navy, stationed aboard the ship Arizona in Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. He was one of the survivors. He swam to shore mostly underwater to avoid the fire. Some of our alumni did not return. Franklin Roosevelt was president. He died in April of 1945. I remember my mother and all her neighborhood friends crying when the word of his death came over the radio. He had been one of their heroes. One of our heroes at Sacred Heart, Monsignor Klinkhammer, died of cancer at the age of 68 on September 22nd, 1947. Charlotte Degani, editor of the Echoes in 1948, wrote the following: "Father, as he preferred being called, was one of the friendliest men that many of us will ever know. He was humble and sincere always and set a wonderful example for his parishioners. Father Mirth presided at his funeral and stated he was a good priest, priestly priest. Monsignor served Sacred Heart for 36 years. Only 24 more to go, Father Mirth. As we entered the 50s, we had a new parish leader, Father Mirth. He had promised to fill the hope of Monsignor Quinhammer for a new school, church, rectory, and auditorium. Work on these was completed in March of 1952. A new grade school was completed and occupied in January 1959. Depending on individual opinions, the 50s were either described as a time of conformity, marked by conservative values, or as a golden era when times seemed ideal. We experienced the Korean conflict and the Cold War. In school, we practiced taking cover, hiding under our desks in case the A-bomb would make a direct hit on Sacred Heart. Elvis made his debut on his Sullivan. Only his upper body was shown as he was swimming hips. Were sure to cause havoc among his female fans, and those who watched him were destined for hell. My dad would say when he had hit a new low in the music world. We danced to rock and roll at our sock hops. Although going steady was a popular term, it wasn't to happen at Sacred Heart. Some of the boys wore little jackets, rolled up jeans, and slicked back their hair, looking a little like John Travolta in Grease. We made our decorations for junior senior prom. Our moms cooked the meal. The good sisters would fill in our dance cards to be sure we had a partner for each dance. Our biggest sports rival was St. James of Grand Forks, and we managed to beat them a time or two. Obviously, we experienced many changes over our first 50 years. There's one thing that is a constant, one thing that bonded the alumni of 1912 to all of those who followed: our shared Catholic education. The values of honesty, integrity, love of God, family, and church remain the same. They never go out of style, unlike those brown cotton socks.